Hello everyone and welcome back to Barcelona. It is time for Formula One qualifying on an afternoon where McLaren look rapid, but others could yet make this a very tight battle at the front. In a few moments' time, the capacity crowd will roar for Sainz and Alonso and the other 18 drivers in the field. It is round 9 of the Formula One World Championship, and our qualifying lap runs to 4.6 kilometers, 2.8 miles. We're setting the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix, which will run to 66 laps. It's a 14-turn circuit. The annoying chicane removed in recent years. It means that the end of the lap is about keeping your soft Pirelli tyres within the window where they still provide the grip. It's the C3, the C2 and the C1 for the weekend. We'll be focusing on the softest tyre. About 20 miles outside of these wonderful pictures that we see. Scarda Familia, one of so many cultural highlights in a very popular stop on the Formula One calendar. We've arrived at round 9. This is the qualifying hour. Laps at the limit to decide the grid, and we are looking forward to it. It is another brilliant day to be out on track and attacking the corners. The track temperature is 47 degrees, the air temperature is 29, and the capacity crowd is ready to enjoy the cars out on track. I'm Alex Jakes, and joining me for this one is Julian Palmer. But first of all, we say a very good afternoon to David Coulter.
Good afternoon, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling this one. Beautiful Barcelona racetrack, full capacity crowd, and this is a track where you've really got to be at one with your car to deliver the lap time. So full commitment, which is what I always love to see.
Earlier on, showing the full commitment was Oscar Piastri, who was a long way clear of Lando Norris, who made a mistake on his first push lap with the fresh tyres. Something that we've seen a little bit from Lando earlier this year. He put it all right in Monaco with a superb qualifying performance, which laid the foundation for his maiden win in the Principality. It has been McLaren top of all three practice sessions so far, but now, Julian Palmer, we reach the qualifying hour, and we're going to find out the true pecking order around this circuit. New technical directive applying to front wings.
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue for many months about this session coming up. Technical directives meaning that they've clamped up how much the front wings can flex. So in the days of old, you'd have a front wing and at high speed it flexes down, so you basically trim out a bit of front wing naturally, and it gives you a sort of understeer balance in the high speed, but at low speed you have a higher front wing angle and it can give you a bit more front end. And it's a nice way to balance out a Formula One car. And there's obviously natural flex anyway when you build up high speed over aero parts, but the tolerances have been clamped down on, and there are teams in the paddock that think this could be their chance to move further forward. We will see if it's made any big difference, and we can't really tell from practice because the form guide looks much the same as it has been so far this year. It doesn't look like it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, and when you talk to the team principals, or more importantly, I guess, the technical members of the team, they kind of just shrug their shoulders like, yes, it's been a challenge to stiffen up the wings for those that were well outside what the new regulations are, but in the end, it's just one element of an overall package of a race car.
It's a funny one where over the winter in pre-season testing there was much talk about, developing a car for the first 8 races and then developing a new obviously front wing, but new design basically around this technical directive, and then we've got here. It appears to be somewhat underwhelming so far, but hey, we'll see. We've got an hour of qualifying coming up where this circuit normally is decided by fine margins as well. It was 200ths that Lando Norris managed to just edge Verstappen out by in last year's qualifying, and then of course it changed in the start of the race with Max taking the lead and the win.
Green light at the end of the pit lane. We will begin our 18-minute long Q1 session to find out who makes it through into the top 15. We'll lose the 5 slowest drivers, and heading out there nice and early, Colapinto, who's been searching for a bit of form since he returned to Formula One, getting to grips with the Alpine car, and earlier on it wasn't particularly strong from Colapinto. 17th, so a step forward compared to yesterday, but not where he wanted to be if you consider he was a point scorer last time out. Isaac Hadjar, very strong from him, again running in the top 10. P6 in the final practice session earlier on.
So if you go out on the green light, you have a chance to do three runs, 3 sets of soft tyres, and that is basically for drivers that don't think they're going to be able to get through into Q2 with 2 sets, so they want to get themselves an advantage at the cost of a set of tyres later on in qualifying, should they get there. And we've seen Colapinto, Stroll, the 2 Haas cars go out, and now Alex Albon's joined them as well, and Alex has had a very compromised weekend, missing FP1 with Victor Martin stepping in for Williams, missing FP3 effectively with a brake issue earlier on. He just did 1 flying lap. So Albon's out there, 5 cars out, and in theory they all think they're going to be going out in Q1, so we'll keep an eye on them with their extra set of tyres later on. 15 weight.
Yeah, we had that in-car shot there of Lewis Hamilton, who came into the weekend a little bit sort of confused in terms of saying he doesn't know how to do a qualifying lap, which I just find extraordinary when you consider he basically is number 1 in every stat, including qualifying. So his sort of difficulties of the 1-lap pace that he saw Mercedes seems to be continuing at Ferrari. I'm curious, Julian, whether, as we just see the opening of a lap here from Ocon, the very best just normally adapt to whatever car they've got. Yes, you need to get to know teams and personalities and you know where the development tools are, but driving's driving. So I just don't buy into this. We need to give Lewis Hamilton time to work out how to drive a Ferrari.
I guess what's the alternative? They've just signed him on a massive money deal, snatching him away from Mercedes, and so you know he's still looking a little bit at sea with the car. Leclerc's been quicker all the way through the weekend, really. And, you know, Lewis seems to be just struggling for grip, struggling for balance. But as you say, DC, it's not necessarily the fact that he's struggling to adapt to a new team. Maybe it is, and there is a fair amount of shift. But this is a driver that's done so many Grand Prix, tops all the stats and some of the record books. I mean, it's incredible the stats and the accolades that Lewis has racked up. So you think 9 races into his Ferrari tenure here, he'd be able to start to understand what's going on. But
yeah,
you know, there is. We can't overlook what happened last year as well at Mercedes, can we? Really?
No. You know, well, as you were saying about all the stats, he is the GOAT, which I always feel. I get what it abbreviates down to, but I always feel it doesn't. That's not a sexy enough animal to reflect his brilliance. We've had this a conversation before. I think I'm not anti-GOAT at all, but there's just got to be something more majestic.
Should be a lion.
Yeah.
When the goat's beating the lion, then what's happening there?
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton with just 1 pole position in the last 4 seasons. And he was saying that on the media day, that he doesn't know how to put one together. But the stats, as Jolien and David have told you, tell a different story. Stroll is ahead of Albon, then it's Colapinto ahead of the Haas's. Ocon ahead of Behrman, the top 5, who went out for an early run.
So, DC, when you were coming to the end of your career, did you ever start to feel like you were missing a little bit of qualifying speed compared to your sort of front-running days in the McLaren? As you slipped back and went to Red Bull, were you ever sort of second-guessing yourself on a Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, and that's ultimately why I stopped. I stopped before I got stopped, and 2 things. One, I would do all the ABCs of driving, but the lap time just wasn't there. It was never the best at qualifying, it's fair to say. I only had 12 poles out of 240 odd attempts, but the other thing was I was in 3 little incidents at the start of Grand Prix, and the first time you blame the other guy, the second time you go, what was that guy thinking? The third time you go, that's 3 different incidents with me as the common denominator. I think it's time to stop.
It's interesting. It's interesting, the mindset and the journey you go on to reach that decision. There is Lewis Hamilton heading out onto the racetrack. Everyone now filing onto the circuit. They're going to get 2 runs, as well as the 5 that have already set a time.
I mean, the benchmark for performance at age is still Fernando Alonso, isn't it? Who's really looking quick again this weekend. But the thing with Fernando compared to Lewis is the benchmark on the other side of the garage. Fernando, here he is, getting ready to take to the track for the first time on home soil this season. He's up against Lance Stroll.
Maybe little guys just age slower.
Is this the theory, DC?
No, it sounded like a statement, but it's really a question, because he's like the Benjamin Button of Formula One drivers. He was racing when I retired, well, as was Lewis, and I agree with you. He just seems, as much as we can tell, having Lance Stroll as his teammate, he just seems to have all the hunger, all the speed. And what is he, 42, 43 years old?
Yeah, Fernando Alonso, 43 years young.
If you put, though, Lance Stroll in Charles Leclerc's seat, if you swap Leclerc and Stroll, it might have a different feel to it. I would imagine that you'd have Lewis suddenly a couple of tenths up on Lance, and you'd have Charles possibly ahead of Fernando, and it would give a sort of different feel to it. You're always compared to your teammate, and what I would say for Hamilton is his teammate is someone that we've been saying for years may potentially be the fastest over one lap, so it's a really tough reference.
Yeah, given the capacity crowd here in Barcelona, I am not sure I can agree with the statement you've just said, Jolene, about Charles would be quicker than Fernando. Let's have this conversation when we're at the next Grand Prix.
Should have had it at the last one.
So Hulkenberg's out there in the heavily revised Sauber. They've updated a lot on that car, but notably the floor. Anytime a new floor is brought to a Formula One car, that can bring an awful lot of performance, and they do appear to have had a better one-lap pace at least. Hulkenberg scoring all of Sauber's points at the start of the campaign with a fine 7th place, born out of experience in mixed conditions. In the dry since then, it's not been an easy season for Sauber, who currently sit last in the Constructors' Championship with just those 6 points scored by Hulkenberg. But it's the fastest time for him so far. He's gone out there on the soft tyres, gone ahead of the 5 who went earlier on. Track will be ramping up with every lap that we run, and here's a man who will be getting a rapturous reception around the circuit, always in the points every single time he's come to the Spanish Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz.
So those 5 have acted as sort of road sweepers as well for everyone else coming in with a bit of track evolution. The times will tumble, and now we've got the fastest drivers on circuit as well. Sainz hasn't necessarily been one of them so far this weekend. Great form around here, as you mentioned, but Williams seem to be struggling compared to where we've seen them in their heyday in the last few weekends. Here comes Carlos to the line, and he goes 3rd, a 10th down on Lawson, and behind Hulkenberg in the Sauber as well.
So Lawson, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Stroll, Albon, Tsunoda, Colapinto, Bortoleto, and the 2 Haas cars, who will just be hoping to keep it off the back row of the grid, given their form so far this weekend. They're just not enjoying the long, high-speed corners that this racetrack provides. Antonelli was top for a few seconds. Lando Norris is half a second ahead. The McLaren continuing to look very, very strong, and that's some toe for Fernando Alonso to enjoy as he starts his push lap, tucked up just behind the McLaren that's punching a hole in the air. Round the 14th and final corner we go with George Russell, who misses out by 7 thousandths of a second. Hadjar continuing his strong one-lap pace, 4/10 of a second behind Russell, but crucially ahead of his teammate. And now Piastri, championship leader by 3 points, negotiating a final sector I think it's fair to say he's never really got on with in his time in Formula One. Trying to keep the tyre alive and trying to beat his teammates' time. Earlier on, he was absolutely mighty through turns 1 and 2, and on the stopwatch, he's still ahead of his teammate, like he was when he topped 3rd practice earlier on.
Yeah, I think all the drivers getting their eye in, and as Julian mentioned there's always a little bit of circuit evolution. We've had support races out there, taking some of the F1 rubber away, putting their own rubber down. But I think you're absolutely right. I think Oscar Piastri has been finding his feet on this racetrack, but generally this year he's been stronger everywhere. He was a little bit in the shadow of Norris last year, but he leads the championship not by mistake, he leads it by the performances he's put in. So it's just fascinating to watch the inter-team battle there develop.
Yeah, the progression has been mighty. Oscar Piastri has out-qualified Lando Norris 4 times this year. That's already as much as he managed throughout the entirety of last year. Ferraris have gone over the line with their first efforts of this qualifying Saturday. Charles Leclerc in 4th, Lewis Hamilton in 7th. Over to the world champion to see where he sits in the qualifying pecking order.
Ferraris look so low to the ground through the final corner as well. You could just see the ground just striking out against the asphalt. Verstappen halfway around his first lap here.
Yeah, a couple of tenths off in, well, maybe slightly less than that in the first sector. So there is an element, believe it or not, of how they use the tyres. Even though it's one lap on the for the best time, they are managing a little bit in that first sector, not trying to take too much out of it. So they've got everything available in this section towards the end. So this won't take him top, but let's see where it puts him.
Crucially, it takes him ahead of Lando Norris. Splitting the McLarens would be a big statement if he was able to do so later on. We're just looking for the 15 fastest cars to make our way into the next part of qualifying, and at the moment Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda and Bortoleto are in the bottom 5. Felipe Drugovich, a former Formula 2 champion and a double winner around here in that championship of both sprint and feature race, is a reserve driver at Aston Martin. And Robert Lewandowski, one of the great all-time strikers. Just the 10 Bundesliga titles for him, just the 10. Watching on, and he was speaking to Max Verstappen minutes before qualifying began. A pretty strange phenomenon that only Formula One really offers, because we were discussing in the box, DC, that you wouldn't get it the other way round. You wouldn't have Max Verstappen yakking to Robert Lewandowski in the tunnel, would you, before a match?
No, and that's just a cultural thing. Over years of sports developing in Formula One and motor racing, it's a part of the preparation of getting the vehicle ready to go, that you're surrounded by your mechanics, your engineers, and Formula One has afforded over the years the opportunity for key partners and whatever global partners to be on the grid. And some drivers like to chat, some like to keep their distance. I was pretty relaxed when it came to saying hi to people, because I felt when you got in the car, put your helmet on, that was enough time to sort of get your focus. Jolene, how were you? Were you chitty-chatty, or were you like, cold as ice?
I was. You could be. It depended on the race, didn't it? But I would, if it was a big one, or if there was something on it, I'd like to just not be speaking to anyone. Cold as ice. Please don't bother me. In the moments before when you walk into the garage, for me that was like, right, I'm in the zone now. Want to jump in the car, say hello to the engineer, talk about the last minute prep, and get on with driving the car, rather than exchanging pleasantries with various people. Maybe I'm just a rude person.
Yeah, we might have considered that a couple of times over the last few years. Only joking. All right, there's 4 minutes to go. We need a top 15 in the order. At the moment, even though it's a heavily revised Sauber, both of them are going out. Hülkenberg and Bortoleto. Tsunoda will not want the narrative of, he's had a couple of races to get up to speed, but it's not working out for him in that second Red Bull. A sentence that we've said about Sergio Perez in the past, a sentence that we've said about Liam Lawson in the past. High pressure lap coming his way. Sainz, with this immaculate record of always being in the top 10 here every single time he's come to his home Grand Prix, but he hasn't looked comfortable with that Williams all weekend long. Of course, you would expect Sainz to find something. You would expect Hülkenberg to improve on a final push lap in qualifying. So there'll be those ahead slightly worried as we go into this final run in qualifying.
We could bring it back to the 5 that went out at the start of the session as well, that have done 2 sets of tyres. So that includes Esteban Ocon, who has done 2 sets of tyres and is still in the bottom 5. But Lance Stroll has improved on a second set, hasn't got himself too loftily up the order, unlike Alex Albon, who put on a second set and is up in 6th place. So managing to dial in those that have already run their second set of tyres, including Colin Pinto here, who's waiting for a chance.
I can't pull away, problem.
Oh no, Colin Pinto reporting a problem with the car, and he's looking for something. Sainz immediately told, I'm sure on the radio he'd have been told, he's got a problem, you're allowed to go past him.
Problem is, everyone else is just bottled in right behind. I don't know if Hamilton's got the steering angle to get round Colin Pinto. Now Franco's moved forward and everyone else can get on with qualifying. Not ideal.
He's obviously got drive of a sorts, and then to sort of get moving and then not, it would almost suggest to me that the clutch was disengaging, slipping. It's not like it's juddering as if he's got a very unusual bite point. Let's hope he gets an opportunity to get a run in.
Well, especially considering he's outperformed his teammate in this first part of qualifying. He's in 11th, Gasly's in 13th.
He's run the 2 sets.
I can't pull away, problem.
Franco a chance to dial in, have a second set of tyres to establish himself, and then put it all together on the third set. But I don't know if he's going to get the chance. Looks like he's still in the pits at the moment.
Yeah, still static on our driver tracker. We're focusing on Gabriel Bortoleto, a young Brazilian driver, reigning Formula 3 champion a couple of years ago, reigning Formula 2 champion of last year. A man trying to take all the speed he can through turn number 9. This is the run-wide racing line that is turn number 10, and then the technical final sector to conclude the lap. He's currently looking for a jump forward. His teammate has just found that jump forward. Great lap time for Hulkenberg. Shows what's possible out there. Here's the second Sauber over the line, and it's a good lap for Bortoleto as well. And so plenty will be sweating having seen that improvement. Gasly is the driver on the brink, down in 15th. And Tonelli only one place further forward. The Italian teenager currently P14, but he's got the fastest middle sector of anyone so far.
Yeah, slightly cautious first sector though, so is this an element of trying to keep the tyres to the end of the lap? Yeah, well, that brings him up within a couple of tenths, so there's still room for improvement in that first sector, but that should be enough to get him through as the times will continue to drop.
So Sainz carries on, and he's in 19th position now. Tsunoda down to 20th. Colapinto has stopped, is my information.
Tsunoda's got to get round to the start of the lap pretty quickly there, letting Sainz through. He's got 50 seconds and he's at the moment last. Sainz has got to deliver through these two corners here, the long left and then this right-hander, equally long at the top of the hill, lower speed, and then it's almost a flat-out run all the way to the line. It is flat through turn 13. One more corner to negotiate, and he's got to put this together.
So it's spread out in terms of the time. Sainz went early. He bolted past a static Colapinto. He gets to 13th. It's an improvement. Will it be by enough?
Don't know if it will be. There are improvements coming. Liam Lawson's down to 18th, but putting it together much better on this lap. Esteban Ocon's going. Lance Stroll will just get a lap in, as will Yuki Tsunoda, so they can all try and jump up, which is what Hamilton's done up to 9th.
Yeah, Hamilton didn't improve in that middle sector, so not by much, but not a perfect lap, but that should be enough to pull him through. So when we look at the time is run out.
So the checkered flag is out, and Behrman is in the drop zone. Esteban Ocon is still in the drop zone. Crucially, that car is beyond the start-finish line. Haas moving around a lot for Esteban Ocon, trying to fight his way through into Q2.
Tsunoda's first sector isn't good in the Red Bull as well, down in 20th.
Can Ocon get there? He gets to 15th by 0.02 of a second to eliminate the home hero, Carlos Sainz. Now, Behrman had a good second run. Can it be a good third run? It is again for Oliver Behrman. Superb lap time under pressure. And talking of pressure, here's Yuki Tsunoda, who will be hoping upon hope that he's kept the tyres in, that they're offering grip, because he's currently in 20th position. And we've already seen this with the second Red Bull earlier in the year. Can Tsunoda, who's been complaining about the car sliding all weekend long, make it through? He can't. He's 19th. Make that back to 20th. Yuki Tsunoda at the back of the field for the Spanish Grand Prix. He is out in the first part of qualifying, along with Hulkenberg, Ocon, Sainz and Colapinto, who had a car problem and wasn't allowed a third run at the racetrack.
Well, we didn't stay with Tsunoda for the entire lap, but it's just so confusing. He had a couple of runs at it. Colapinto did his 2 runs, but not as the track evolved right at the end. And yeah, just no pace for Tsunoda.
He didn't have pace on the first run either, which is why he was needing such a good improvement in the second run. He just found no sort of lap time. We joined him just as he was sliding, coming through turn 12 on the exit, which didn't look great. He had a big confidence lift through the final corner, which the front runners and certainly his teammate isn't having in the other Red Bull. He just seems like he has no grip. That's what he says, and it's kind of what it looks like as well.
Well, the driver who started the season in a Racing Bull, P5 on the grid in Melbourne, will come to the 9th round of the season in Barcelona in a Red Bull and find himself with 20th on the grid. And he's come through from the back to score points earlier in the season, did so from the pit lane in Imola, but it's another huge task for him to complete on Sunday, and a chastening moment for the Red Bull Racing man.
This is just a disaster for Red Bull. Verstappen is still in the mix. He was second quickest there, and he can be at the front. And, you know, they are certainly a one-car team.
Oh, the last corner was a bit scary.
Yeah, well done, man.
Ollie Behrman chuffed to be through into Q2. He'll go again, and he's out-qualified Esteban Ocon today. How do you explain it if you're Red Bull, DC? You change Lawson after 2 races because he's had these sort of performances. You put in Tsunoda and you're getting these sort of performances.
It is, well, I can't explain it. I just don't get the sort of offset in lap time. Well, I guess we're looking at half a second, but that reflects how close Formula One is. But it's almost like Tsunoda, he'll be sort of asking for a transfer back to the Racing Bulls.
That's 18.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz. Well, Williams.
Oh, the last corner was a bit scary.
Yeah, well done, man.
Qualifying results of the season. And let's now dig into that Yuki Tsunoda lap. You're looking at the man in the garage who's been eliminated. Alex Brundle's going to take us through why that was.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda really struggling in that one. Finds himself absolutely at the rear of the field. I've had one look at it. It looks like the grip of the Red Bull just falls apart at the end of the lap. Like, let's take a look at the lap as it played.
And that's 18.
Yeah, not good.
Couple of corners here, but I think that the main loss for him is towards the end of the lap then. Bouncing off the floor, Red Bull nice and low, down towards turn 1. You see he's slightly wide of that apex curb in T1, not a disaster, slightly wide in T2 as well. And then decent speed through turn 3. Watch it already though wash across the racetrack here with that left front tyre not performing. He's still got decent performance as he gets down to the apex of turn 4, not quite ringing the track out on the exit for Yuki Tsunoda. Again, slightly wide in 5, not quite pinpoint perfect in a session which was so close for all of the drivers to make it through. Nice performance down towards turn 7. Not too much that you can pick from there. Flat out through turn number 9. But it's in this final sector where we picked him up on the feed where the car really doesn't turn from. Look how much understeer.
Well, honestly, I mean, that was pretty clean lap. Yep.
Copy that. Bit of a swapper through the mid-corner as well. Does he have to get out of it through the final corner? Not quite, but he just doesn't have the front end, and it's something they've been struggling with all weekend at Red Bull, making the front work. Max Verstappen's had a little bit of understeer, but Tsunoda appearing just not to be able to manage it.
So switch off, try and pull over as best you can. Sorry, mate.
And we're hearing from another Alex there. Alex Albon was questioning the run plan about why they were going out so early and being told it's all about the tyres.
It looked to me like Yuki was just kind of under-driving for a lot of that, actually. Had a bit of margin and just small little bits to an apex, chunks to an exit, white line. Turn 10, certainly we're seeing drivers go almost all 4 wheels off there on the exit, and Yuki was no wheels off there. And it looks, maybe he's just got a bit conservative in that final lap. There was just the slide coming through turn 12 on the exit, but that was the only real moment where it looked like the car was sort of getting away from it. Apart from that, it looked like he was just a bit behind it.
Yeah, it didn't look like he had a major event anywhere around the lap, but just sort of getting a perspective, it was a half a second down on Verstappen, which is never a comfortable gap for any.
I don't quite understand why we're going so early.
It's better for this set of tyres. It's the same one you've just aborted the lap on.
It is right now. It's brutally competitive, and any small weakness in your lap, you're really punished for.
Yeah, I think we should say that as well. This is the obligatory time to mention how close Q1 is, really, isn't it? Tsunoda, if he had 0.8 of a second, was going to the top after that. Carlos Sainz was 18th, said not a good lap. If he's done 2/10, he's 6th. Yeah. I mean, it might be a record-breaking one in Q1 terms, that. I mean, that is insanely close.
I mean, the thing for Yuki's weekend, it has been around that gap, hasn't it? That has been consistently the gap to Max Verstappen. Max had one run there, Yuki had two, but that has been the distance between the two of them, and he's been reporting sliding since session one, and they've not been able to find a solution that's given him the confidence, because not attacking anywhere near the extremities of the racetrack.
If you look at a Red Bull, though, this is an issue for the second car. When they were strong, like you say, DC, Sergio Perez was in the second car, and he could be 3-4 tenths off. But Max was right at the front, and you'd have Checo certainly in the top 5, sometimes the top 3, being 3 tenths off. With how close the field is now, the differences just get massively exaggerated. You've got Max trying to wring the neck to get to the front row, and meanwhile you've got Yuki slightly under driving and not completely confident with the car and having some confidence lifts in the high speed. It doesn't take long before you get to a couple of tenths of actually it's there in the car. It's just the driver doesn't have the confidence to extract it on one clean lap, and suddenly you're out and you're last.
Yeah, it might be difficult for our viewers who are not so familiar with Formula 1 to understand, well, what can't they just change the car to make them comfortable? But with the restrictions on the cost cap, you design your car with the best simulation technology you have, you validate it on the racetrack, and it's just not possible to have parallel programs, and you're naturally led towards whoever's driving the car the fastest. So that is the brutal honesty of the sport, that it's not opinion-based, it's data-based, and the ultimate data comes from a stopwatch.
A tough moment for Yuki Tsunoda. So he fell at the first hurdle, along with Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto. It means that Alex Albon is the sole remaining Williams in the qualifying session. With Behrman, same thing for Haas as well. So Behrman, it's only the third time he's out-qualified Esteban Ocon since they became teammates. Rookie driver after 3 substitute appearances last year. Albon goes out early, say 1:13.1. And Behrman will be the next car in our picture. Behrman's season so far categorized by 3-point scoring finishes in China when the team scored with both cars, in Japan when he had a superb Q3 appearance, which converted into points the next day, and Bahrain when he raced very well in a big pack of cars towards the end of the race. Since then, 4 non-scores for Oliver Behrman, so he's hoping at a track where it's not always been the easiest to overtake to put in a qualifying performance that at least gives him a chance of scoring for the first time in that run. They're the only 2 cars that have set a time so far, the Williams and the Haas. Q2, 11 minutes remaining, and the world champion is on an outlap, going past the thousands of fans that line this Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya and the final sector, with the fast and flowing turns 13 and 14, providing a spectacular high-speed end to the lap. That circuit modification made in recent times. And Max Verstappen, a 4-time winner of this Grand Prix, 3 times on the bounce, heading down to turn number 1, DRS wide open, attacking the race.
New set of soft tyres for Verstappen as well, as he sweeps through 1, 2 and 3, and will very quickly come to the end of the first sector. It's all a big blur of high speed and then negotiating a sort of 3-part chicane, that first sector. Hug the apex a little at turn 4 to give you some space on the exit to get on the gas. And again, a long corner, this left-hander at turn 5 that is so easy to have a front-left lock-up. We haven't actually seen too many of those so far this weekend. Verstappen looking neat and tidy. So far, the best lap this weekend is still Piastri's from practice earlier on. Oscar top Q1, a couple of tenths away from that. So 1:12.3 they're shooting for right now.
Yeah, as Verstappen drops down into what is the last big energy stop of the lap, keeps it within track limits, and he's getting into the final stages, completely clear track ahead. Norris is just launching his lap, but this just looks like a really sort of textbook lap, clean. Expect to see this go to the top of the times.
And it does so by a very handy margin indeed. 7.5 tenths of a second ahead of Alex Albon. 1:12.3 for Max Verstappen, fastest in the second and third sectors. Bortoleto has the fastest first sector, at least he did before Lando Norris went around. So Bortoleto finding himself as the lead car again for Sauber, that is. He finds himself having out-qualified Hulkenberg 4 times now in his rookie campaign, which I think he would have definitely taken at the start of the season, given Hulkenberg's prowess when it came to qualifying Saturdays last year. Bortoleto going into what was second is now third. Gasly's gone into second place. We're nose cam with Lando Norris 3 points back in the drivers' standing, second place in the drivers' championship, and he's trying to emulate what he did last year and get himself into the top 10 shootout, then get himself to pole position. 1 corner to go. Let's see where this stacks up compared to Max Verstappen, and it is comfortably ahead by 0.3 of a second.
Quick laps coming in though. Alonso is flying so far this weekend, going really nicely. Piastri's done the fastest first sector of anyone so far as the times continue to tumble. See what Fernando can do.
Pretty good, up to P3. Driver who is capable of a magic lap around here. He's proven it on many an occasion, no matter what type of season he is having. And at the moment, he's having a really rough one. No point to his name in 8 Grand Prix weekends so far, as Charles Leclerc goes in to third position. Lewis Hamilton is next to cut the beam. There he is in the distance. Ferrari coming through the heat haze and moving ahead of Charles Leclerc. And how Hamilton would love that to be the case at the end of the qualifying hour. Piastri goes top by 0.05 of a second. Reassuringly close between the two McLarens, but they've got a margin over everyone so far. What's the one-lap pace looking like for the Silver Arrows? Kimi Antonelli on sprint pole in Miami, goes into 8th position behind the Alpine. I think he would have wanted more than that. George Russell goes ahead of the Ferraris and behind Max Verstappen in the Red Bull to complete our flurry of laps.
Well, this is still the sort of phase of doing enough to make sure you're in the shootout for the top 10, but I can't help but feel that Russell would maybe have liked a little bit more, and the team generally were of the feeling going into the session that they were certainly capable of being best of the rest. Right now, he's got that whopping gap between Verstappen and Norris of just under half a tenth.
Look how close it is from Verstappen down to Leclerc and beyond, actually. You can even include Fernando Alonso in that. 10th and a half separating third to 7th, but then 3.5 tenths separating first to third. So it looks like the McLarens may be clear of the rest of the field if they can hook things up. That is new tyres for everyone pretty much at the field. The top 12 they're all on a set of new tyres, new soft, so it's like for like, and looks like we're heading towards a McLaren shootout. Not much between those two, 0.5 tenth as Norris gets back and can have a look at some data.
Dark clouds in the distance over 13. Copy that.
Oh, we've heard this before from George Russell, when the sweat was dripping onto his visor and he thought it was raining. What is it about that man in Spain? We didn't have any forecast before the session started.
Well, maybe if he had his eyes on the track and not the sky ahead, he would have made up that 0.5 tenth to be in front of Verstappen. But yeah, look, knowledge is power, and any information you can share with your team is a good thing, but no predicted rain.
I'm happy to give Kimi a tow if needed.
So Russell playing the team.
Dark clouds in the distance over 13. Copy that.
Oh, come on. I would do the same. It's like little brother stuff. I'm through. I'm happily into Q3, but if you want me to help out the other guy, I will.
That help will stop when Antonelli has finished his YTS year and then starts pushing George consistently. And, yeah, and then the battle within builds up.
I'm happy to give Kimi a tow if needed.
George Russell playing the team game on the radio. Here's our rookie watch at the moment. Antonelli, Hadjar, Bortoleto. How delighted would they be if that was able to stay the same? We've got Gasly, who's gone up to 8th position. Antonelli in 9th. Hadjar, then Bortoleto. You've got the others down there as well. Williams really struggling for pace with Alex Albon. Stroll struggling once more, and I think Ollie Behrman did well to get it out of Q1. given the weekend they've been having so far down at Haas. Just the overall design of the car means that it is so sensitive to bumps in the high speed that they have fixes but not cures for that issue, and you can see the duration length of some of these corners. You know what, let me revise my Russell skepticism. It does look like it's raining in the distance. Has anyone mentioned this at any stage of the weekend? This was not advertised. I'm not going to set DC off about the rain in Spain. We'll be here forever.
Well, as we approach the launch of the F1 movie, maybe it's just one giant green screen and it's not actually real.
Yeah, it's clearly in the distance, but nothing yet coming our way in terms of weather information. Right, 3.5 minutes to go in Q2. Who's going to be able to take that crucial step forward when it matters? At the moment, Alonso would be delighted with 7th place if he can find another lap to ensure that. Gasly's done well, and then Hadjar, Antonelli, Bortoleto, Lawson have quite the scrap. Bortoleto clearly enjoying the updates. He's the lead Sauber in the order, and 11th would represent his best ever start in Formula One, but these are Formula One drivers. He'll be dreaming of Q3 for the first time in his career.
I would say he's really solid job he's been doing at the team. We know Hülkenberg's credentials when it comes to single lap pace, and Bortoleto has been definitely showing himself to be a fast race driver. But if we look at the top 10 as it sits right now, and it's incredibly close between Hadjar, Bortoleto, Lawson, but it just feel like those that are through into the top 10 right now, it's not a surprise, you know. So it's going to take something surprising to upset that.
Yeah, agreed. It's difficult to see who has the potential there. Bortoleto's done well to get to 11th. Albon, Stroll and Behrman have all run used tyres because they weren't sure they'd get out of Q1. So anything is a bonus for those three at the moment. Liam Lawson maybe thinks he's got a chance. Of course, would like to stack up well compared to his teammate, who is still in the top 10. You say Fernando Alonso would be very happy with 7th. I wouldn't disagree with you. But you know that would be his worst starting position of this triple header if he ends up 7th.
Wow. He's enjoyed the update to the Aston Martin. And we'll see what he can do. He's on an outlap, but his position looks fairly assured as Antonelli attacks the first 2 turns of the racetrack.
It's not having to get any points so far this year, but he's off the back of a really strong run of qualifying form, and it looks like he can repeat that again. And he has looked like he can do that all weekend. For the first flying lap of the weekend, he was up in the top 3.
The power of the people. Nigel Mansell used to talk about it, giving him half a second around Silverstone. And, well, I certainly wouldn't disagree with him to his face anyway. I would have loved to have got half a second.
What did the people give you, DC?
Oh, a lot of love and a lot of support. But, oh, God, I wish I was one of those guys that would, just because people were loving on you, it made you either try harder or deliver more. I always thought I'd do the best I could on any given day.
DC won the British Grand Prix twice, so maybe if you were trackside on one of those occasions, your cheering helped a little bit. As we see. as we see. There you go, well done, Palmer.
I'm taking some credit for that.
I thank you.
So over the line we go, and Antonelli has gone to P8, and we've seen Bortoleto improve on his laps. It's been a tough weekend for Williams so far after their point scoring heroics so far in 2025. Alex Albon's got to 10th position, but for how long can Bortoleto manage to find his way through here? He's certainly in the mix. No, he misses out by 1/10 of a second. It would still be his absolute best starting position in a Formula One Grand Prix. A one-lap king so far this year has been Isaac Hadjar, currently down to 12th position. Liam Lawson 2/10 away from Albon as well. Hadjar finds a way again. Under pressure, he fights his way to the top 10. He eliminates Alex Albon, and now can Liam Lawson find an equally strong final sector of the racetrack and elevate himself up? He can't. It's only 13th for Liam Lawson after his career best finish with P8 in the previous Grand Prix. This is just a hit and a hope for Oliver Bearman, who is, as you can see, 0.4 of a second away from Pierre Gasly, and he's going to do well to not find himself falling back to where he currently is in the order. Stroll has already been over the line. Lawson's completed his effort. Albon in 11th will be a bit of disappointment, but maybe in the context of the weekend, not so much. Best ever starting position for Bortoleto, and Bearman can do no more with that car around this circuit. And it's Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll and Bearman, the 5 to fall in the second part of qualifying. So Gasly makes it through by 0.03 of a second. Antonelli gets through as well, as does Alonso, Leclerc, Hadjar, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, and the two McLarens with Piastri top.
So they shuffled the order around a little bit, but it was the 10 that we thought should get there that did get there. And it was just Isaac Hadjar that had to pull a lap out right at the end there. And boy, did he do that. Up into the top 6 for Hadjar. A good chunk ahead of his teammate. I say a good chunk. On this day, 0.3 is a reasonable chunk. And Liam Lawson down in 13th will be probably the most disappointed of the 5 that are not going to be making it into Q3. Albon missed out by not very much.
Well, I think that's a bit of a stretch to say the dirty air at that distance. Julian, you're more recent, but they did seem to be well offline.
Yeah, that was Ollie Bearman then trying to go round to start a flying lap on the next tour, and I mean, yeah, I don't think it was deliberate from Bearman to be tripping Ocon up there. Bearman, in fact, didn't even have a new set in Q2, so he was just really making up the numbers. But of course, for Albon, you're out by just 0.03 of a second, a little bit of dirty air, and you are going to feel that when you're talking such tiny margins. So maybe
They were dirty Haas. They knew what they were doing. Purposely slow in sector 3.
Yeah, sorry. Double Goshi held with the used tire.
Yeah, Bearman addressing his P15. Stroll with 14th position, Lawson in 13th, Bortoleto with his highest start in Formula 1 in P12.
Great job this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Well done, everyone. We'll build up for tomorrow.
I'm really impressed with Bortoleto. We're yet to really see him feature on a Sunday, aren't we? He's had a few of these qualifyings where he starts not far out of the top 10. I'd like to see him given, maybe it will take some of this rain actually falling for Sauber to have another chance of scoring some points, because the race days seem to be getting away from them. But in terms of one lap pace, Hulkenberg is a fantastic barometer of how good you are.
Yeah, sorry. Double Goshi held with the used tire.
Great to me, another strong rookie.
Okay, let's take a breather in the comm box and send it to Ruth Buscombe for some analysis of a McLaren versus a Red Bull.
A McLaren versus a Red Bull indeed. Now in Q1, Yuki said he had a pretty clean lap, but he was knocked out. It was testament to that. P6 to P20 in just 0.4 of a second. And the story...
Great job this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Well done, everyone. We'll build up for tomorrow.
Piastri P1, Max Verstappen P3. Piastri's edge comes mostly in those medium speed corners, especially turn 1, turn 3 and turn 7 to 8 Verstappen. Max does have more time full throttle, but we can see that Oscar is carrying more minimum speed where it is counted, and he's plus 0.36 seconds. A massive statement. Going into Q3, it does look like that Red Bull is still struggling with understeer. It doesn't look like a particularly bad lap by Max Verstappen. It just looks like that McLaren has got the edge. A big margin right now between the McLaren and the Red Bull, but not between Oscar and his teammate Lando, where it is all to play for. Tiny, tiny margins. Again, looks like Oscar slightly stronger in turns 1 and 2 and 9, but other than that, absolutely everything to play for. And it did look like Oscar had a little bit of a toe into turn 1. If that was the case, actually it really is back down to tight margins between those two McLarens in their Q3 session in the fight for pole.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, Oscar Piastri looking rapid in a straight line on the data trace. Of course, timing your toe perfectly is something that we've seen decide pole position before in Formula One. Max Verstappen did it last year with a Haas to perfection, when McLaren seemed to be the quickest car. It's one that you've got to improvise, because you can't really do it synchronized with your teammate. Not a luxury that Max Verstappen has. His teammate is going to start at the back for this Grand Prix. If you've just joined us in the session,
you've got to get a little bit lucky to find someone completing a flying lap as you're ready to open one up. Max has done that with his teammate in Jeddah this year, as Yuki managed to give him a bit of a toe towards pole position. I mean, if that's with a toe, then that's 1.5 of Oscar's 3.5 advantage over Max there. So Ruth's right, you know, the rest of it, it's a couple of tenths that Red Bull are away. Still think it's going to be too much for them to make up, and I think the consistency that both McLaren drivers are now finding those lap times should make them a formidable force heading into Q3, but we will see. This is where Max can often thrive.
Yeah, but it does feel like this is a case of which one of the McLarens will be on pole, and then what is the mix of the Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari. Ferrari coming at it late. It felt to me that Mercedes were in a stronger position going into quali, but it's so close. If we just use that last session times between Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, who, well, is this the moment that he discovers his qualifying form? We know Leclerc is a brilliant benchmark.
He certainly found a lot of pace in Q2 there. Hamilton was up ahead of Charles by 0.5 of a second. And if you're not going to be on the front row as a Red Bull, Ferrari or Mercedes, you want to be making sure you start third, because we saw last year there are great opportunities to overtake at the start of this race. It's a really long run to the first braking zone. George Russell swept round the outside of both Norris and Verstappen last year. I'm sure Max is very capable of doing the same, as is George, as are either of the Ferraris. If they can possibly start third and they can bring themselves into play, it's tiny margins that separate third and seventh in Q2 there. And for the sake of 1/10, you can have a chance of fighting for the race lead at the start, or you could be down on the third row of the grid and just looking at, can you possibly get back to a podium?
Yeah, we've seen Fernando Alonso fight through from fourth on the grid to the lead here. We've seen George Russell do exactly that with the use of the headwind into turn one last year, as Norris and Verstappen were busy tripping over each other. Hamilton had his momentum checked and the door swung open for George Russell. So it is an epic run down to the first turn, but you'd always rather have pole position. And that's what we're going to decide. There's a green light at the end of the pit lane. Q3 is about to get underway. The cars light, agile, attacking the racetrack, looking to decide the 9th grid of the year and how we will line up with just 3 points between Piastri and Norris in the Formula One World Championship. We'll see who is going to be able to take the pole position here. For Max Verstappen, if he was able to do so, would be immense satisfaction, because McLaren have been topping the sessions throughout practice. You've got the inter-team battle between Piastri and Norris. All of Piastri's pole positions scored this year. He's aiming for his 4th career pole. Lando Norris is aiming for his return to the front. He's looking for pole position number 12. Lewis Hamilton in your picture said he'd forgotten how to put a lap together. Well, he'll be hoping for, at the very least, the 2nd row of the grid. That would represent, if he was ahead of Charles Leclerc, a very good day's work in the context of where that Ferrari has found itself this weekend. Even the prep laps are important this weekend. You've seen the cars going at glacial pace out on the circuit, keeping the tyres in the temperature window. So this will be a slow trundle round, around 80 miles an hour, keeping that temperature window where you want it to be, and then finally attacking the racetrack, DC.
Yeah, and the great thing, actually, as we've looked at that cloud coming in, as identified early by eagle-eyed Russell, it's amazing how doing a lap under a cloud, normally doing anything under a cloud is not a good analogy, but doing a lap under a cloud, it can just bring the car into a window of performance. So we talk about a track being a living thing and track evolution. This could just unleash a bit of performance for someone that we haven't quite seen it. The fact that we do, you know, it's not The lights haven't gone out, but it's definitely a bit grayer out there.
It is getting dark out there. Let's see whether Piastri can put together his best ever Spanish Grand Prix qualifying performance. Started both Grand Prix here in ninth. He's been using so much of the exit curve at turn number 2 all weekend long, using the extremity of the racetrack at that point. He's done a 21.4 on his first run, about to plunge down the hill into turn number 5.
Yeah, this is, it's a great track actually. A little bit of elevation change, not quite Spa in Belgium, but enough to give you the sensation as he drops down into the apex of 7, rises up to 9. They'll be absolutely flat. He's going to see his teammate ahead, who will be keen not to give him any slipstream or block his lap at all. And this might be enough just to unsettle Oscar as he sees Norris, who's going to have to get offline at some point, or has he already got out of the way?
But this is going to give Norris a tow. This is exactly what we were talking about. Look, Lando's going to start his lap behind Oscar, who comes across the line and will jump out of the way. There we go. There is no teamwork going on in McLaren.
Yeah, that's like, you are not getting a tow, buddy. You're having to do this on your own.
Well, Piastri's first lap was a 1:11.836, and it was a really strong effort on the board. George Russell, he gets 0.2 of a second away. Russell ahead of his teammate Kimi Antonelli. Fastest final sector of anyone so far. Verstappen trying to get back in contention. Only good enough for P3. Lando Norris has the fastest first sector of anyone so far. And we go on board with a man who's hoping to reclaim the championship lead this weekend. Climbing the hill through 7 and 8. This is the sound of turn number 9.
Absolutely nailed as he runs, and this is, there's laps coming towards him nicely. Middle sector, not fastest of all, but it's definitely within the window, and it's a beautiful moment. Once you get here, you know, and once I can get this hooked up around 12, it's the just the 2 fast ones to go.
He said after securing pole position in Monaco, he got a little bit of himself back. Can it be provisional pole for Lando Norris? It is! By 1/100th of a second. The 2 McLaren drivers are separated by 1/100th of a second on the timing page. 3 points in the championship, and it's a McLaren front row as it stands, but it is game on for the final run.
And that is why Oscar was so desperate to avoid giving Lando any semblance of a slipstream there. Charles Leclerc's on a decent lap in the Ferrari here, so Hamilton's 5th and not miles away from Verstappen, but Leclerc can pop himself in the top 3 if he can get through the final sector.
I still don't understand why we didn't do what we discussed. 2 tenths. Too conservative. Too conservative.
I suspect that's him suggesting he gets a tow from Antonelli as Leclerc hits the line.
Charles Leclerc just losing a little bit in the final part of the racetrack. Time ebbing away, the grip of those Pirelli tyres falling away, and it's P4 for Charles Leclerc. George Russell unhappy with the run plan. It's Norris from Piastri, from Russell, then Leclerc. The reigning world champion is P5 and half a second away. Lewis Hamilton is 0.6 of a second away in P6. And let's go back then to the final moments of Oscar Piastri's lap, where Lando Norris saw him coming.
It's cunning from Norris, who jumped so far off the road.
I still don't understand why we didn't do what we discussed. 2 tenths. Too conservative. Too conservative.
Is that the same word you used, Julian, or not? Did you say it was cheeky?
Cunning. Cheeky
Cunning.
works.
Okay.
He nearly parked up on the grid, did Oscar. So determined he was not to give any hint of a slipstream to Norris. But 1/100th of a second between the 2. What a great battle to come. And
that was good communication there to Oscar as well, because the race engineer and driver are a team on one side of the garage. The other side, they're your rivals today. This looks like it's McLaren v McLaren, and Oscar will work with his side of the garage to make sure they beat Lando. It'd be great for McLaren either way with a 1-2, but that was good communication there to Piastri saying, be careful, don't give him that toe.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Russell has laid down good communication in terms of, look, Antonelli.
Watch for Lando opening close behind.
Cheeky.
And we're now seeing Alonso. Is people power enough to put him in amongst the big runners?
Well, let's see whether Fernando Alonso can conjure out another glorious lap around this circuit. He has taken machinery in the past that had no business being in the top 10 to the upper echelons of the grid. He's a former winner on multiple occasions around here. 0.4 of a second away. How much can he keep the tyre alive through the technical final sector of the racetrack?
These long corners here, 10 and 12, where you do start to fight the car with a bit of oversteer. Keeps it pinned through 13. Oh, he's committed through 14 as well.
He wants it. Where does he go? Epic stuff, Fernando Alonso. He's gone to P5, ahead of the reigning world champion. What a lap for the crowd to revel in, for the driver to revel in. It might get beaten on the second runs, but that's the sort of thing that you remember for years afterwards if you see it in the crowd. The driver, 43 years of age, still fighting out there, fighting to P5.
Love it, absolutely love it. What a lap there, and as you say, he may well get beaten, but putting himself right in amongst two Ferraris and in front of our current world champion.
So Leclerc is happy with what he's done there, and he's out of the car. So that is it. Ferrari in fourth. Hamilton will go again. I'd have thought Alonso loves it. What a great lap.
That was strong. Very good. Well done.
The guy's an animal. Look at him. Look at him milking the crowd as he should. They have given him the support. He's driven a lap that he obviously feels is lap. And, well, who can disagree as we now have the two McLarens running out the battle for pole position.
I said Alonso would be disappointed with seventh.
Yep.
I think he would again. He's on such form over one lap, and the commitment he had through that final turn as well was just right. This is a flyer. Let's keep the foot in and see what happens. And he scooped it up to a top 5. Right. Focus on for the McLaren drivers out front. Head to head. Norris ahead of Piastri. Piastri just with the visor.
That was strong. Very good. Well done.
Space behind Lando. There will be no slipstreams involved in this one. Norris has got Gasly a good chunk ahead of him. He's not going to be drafting up behind him. Piastri won't want to get too close to Norris because it would be a hindrance for the rest of the lap. So this is just driver v driver in the same team, and this is a pretty big one.
Well, in the course of the season so far, Lando Norris has rarely, not a dig at him, it's just a fact, he's rarely given himself the foundation of a first run in Q3 to attack all in for the final run in Q3. He's done that today. He's done that with clever tactics and a great lap. Can he deliver a second consecutive pole position? It would mean that Verstappen, Piastri and Norris have shared the pole positions evenly between the three of them. And it is vital, even with that long run down to turn 1 tomorrow, which has provided so much drama through the years. Lando Norris attacking the first 2 turns of the racetrack, looking for pole position.
Well, it's his to lose, and let's just see how he opens this first sector.
There were hundreds between them through all of the sectors on the first flyer, and Norris has just found another 10th in that level. That is a big first sector.
Yeah, Piastri we're going to see very soon whether he's opened it well, and he has, marginally quicker. And this is developing beautifully as a shootout between the two McLaren drivers. They will have no sight of what their teammates doing right now, but they'll both know they're improving their lap times.
Hadjar has gone to P5 in the Racing Bull, but meanwhile in the battle for pole position, Lando Norris is improving just shy of a 1/10 of a second, but it's not a personal best in the middle sector of the racetrack. Gasly now goes to P5. Outstanding lap time from him. Piastri is extracting more time from the McLaren. It's got to be a mighty final sector for Lando Norris, coming under pressure from his Australian teammate. Norris improves the benchmark. He goes over the line, but he's going to be under pressure from Piastri, who's fastest of all in the first sector. In the second sector, Piastri trying to take away pole, and he does so by 0.2 of a second. Piastri roars past to take pole. It's Antonelli up to 4th position, and Piastri, after being outfoxed on the first lap, came roaring back in style. And it's McLaren 1-2, Mercedes 3-4. Verstappen still attacking out there, down to 9th position. Lewis Hamilton's form around this circuit continues. That is a superb finish to the lap. Verstappen takes away P3. Hamilton will be ahead of Charles Leclerc for just the second time in a Grand Prix start. First time since Shanghai. George Russell takes 4th position away from his old teammate, and that was an epic qualifying session all the way to the last. But it was Norris on the first run, Piastri on the second, and for the 4th time in his Formula One career, Piastri takes pole.
What a lap. I think this is one of these moments where you go, I remember where I was when I saw one of the best shootouts for pole position in some time. This is a classic racetrack. And somehow he dug deep and found that time.
And that's everyone done. P1, Oscar. Well done, buddy. Pole position.
Nice work, very nicely done. It's quite some turnaround from last year, so well done everyone. Good effort so far. Let's have ourselves some fun tomorrow. Thank you.
That's actually a big margin that he's put it on pole by as well.
Largest margin of the year.
0.2. Yeah, 2 whole tenths that he's managed to get ahead of Norris. In the history of Formula One, it's small margin still, but in the history of 2025, it's big. And I think the track suddenly came to life. You mentioned, DC, the bit of cloud cover, the conditions changing. When you see all of the improvements that came in from so many drivers, I mean, everyone found heaps. It meant that Alonso was shuffled down to 10th. Leclerc didn't run at the end there, shuffled down to 7th. Everyone else found a good chunk, and when it came down to it, Oscar managed to extract 3 perfect sectors to beat Lando, who didn't.
And that's everyone done. P1, Oscar. Well done, buddy. Pole position.
Nice work, very nicely done. It's quite some turnaround from last year, so well done everyone. Good effort so far. Let's have ourselves some fun tomorrow. Thank you.
In Q3, Russell set an identical lap time to Verstappen, but he set it second, so he's in 4th. Hamilton equals his best starting position in a Grand Prix for Ferrari. Antonelli was in 6th. Then it's Leclerc, Gasly, Hadjar, and Alonso. Lots of change from the first run to the second there. There will be plenty to analyse afterwards, but Verstappen dug deep, gave himself still a chance. We've still seen so many fighting moves from P3 down to take the lead at turn 1 in the past, so his weekend is nowhere near done.
He'll be there. He'll be there at turn 1, as will George Russell. Identical times on the second row, but Verstappen did it first and will take 3rd. Great effort from Hamilton as well. Found the time right at the death and looked like he was going to be 3rd for a moment, but was just usurped by the Red Bull and the Mercedes. But he'll take confidence anyway from a top 5 start and being back ahead of Charles.
Yeah, 6 times a Grand Prix winner around here, Lewis Hamilton. So it's a track that has seen some great moments for him in the past, and he's delivered nicely there. Well, the crowd were treated to one, and great to have the onboard camera. And now let's check in with the top 3 down in Parc Fermé.
Oscar Piastri, an outstanding lap at the end of qualifying for the biggest pole margin of the year. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, very happy. It's been a good weekend so far. It didn't start off in the best way. It was struggling a little bit, but I think last night we found some pace, and today the car's been mega, and I feel like I've been able to put in some good laps as well. So thank you to the team for all the hard work. This was a pretty miserable scene 12 months ago, so to have turned it around in the best way is a great result.
speaking of finding pace, it was that very last lap in Q3 where you jumped ahead. Where do you think you found the time over the earlier lap without the cheeky toe available, of course?
Yeah, I mean, I improved quite a lot in turn 1, actually. And then there was a couple other places in the lap where I'd been struggling a bit all day. I don't know if I necessarily did better, but no, it all just came to me mainly in the first half of the lap, and then the second half I could just about hang on. It wasn't the perfect lap, but I think around here with the tyres going off so much through the lap, it's very tough to do that. So I'm very, very happy with all the work we put in.
2 McLarens across the front row of the grid tomorrow puts you in a great position strategically for what looks to be an extremely strategic Grand Prix.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting one tomorrow, and I'm pretty glad that I'm starting from pole. It's obviously a long run to turn 1, so got to make sure we try and get a good start tomorrow. But no, very proud of the work we've done today and starting in the best spot. So I can't thank the team enough, and hopefully we can have some fun tomorrow.
Outstanding lap. Congratulations,
Thank
Oscar.
You. Cheers.
Bringing in Lando Norris. Lando, early in the session, it looked like the pole position would be yours, but not quite there in that final run. Do you think you could have had pole today?
Oscar drove very well. I think the pace is definitely there, just a couple of little mistakes, but yeah, didn't do it. And Oscar, like I said, was driving well all weekend. So a good result for the team, a nice one too, and an interesting start for tomorrow.
We saw a little bit of gamesmanship between the two of you early on in Q3 with regards to the toe. 3 points between you coming into this weekend in the championship. Is that a taster of the battle that we're going to see tomorrow?
I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully it's just an easy race for me. But no, I expect it. It's a long run down to turn 1. Normally always interesting. I mean, we've got a lot of quick guys behind us, so we won't count them out. But no, good result for today. I'm happy.
Looks like you're going to have to keep hold of that left front throughout the race tomorrow. Do you have a good race car underneath you?
We do. We have the best one.
Looking forward to that then, Lando. Thanks very much. Max Verstappen, great job to take third position in the session. Was that everything that the car had today?
I guess so. I mean, I think we were lacking all weekend, of course, compared to them, but I think we executed well. And I think, yeah, that third position is, I think, where we more or less should be, even though I think it's quite close behind as well. So, yeah, it's fun. I mean, around here, squeezing everything out of the car. The grip is always quite good, even with the hot temperatures, but yeah, let's see tomorrow what we can do from there.
Exactly the same lap time on our timing screens as George Russell. You, of course, setting the lap time first. You've been talking a little bit about the balance of that Red Bull through the weekend so far. How much work did you have to do overnight to make that car, to put yourself in the position to be third today?
Not too much. I mean, I think we had quite a decent Friday, actually, and we just made some final changes to the car. But yeah, of course, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to really challenge for the pole. But yeah, it's okay.
Do you have a good race car underneath you for tomorrow, starting from the second row on the grid?
Yeah, I'll try my best, but they will be tough to beat. But we'll see what we can do tomorrow.
Have a great one, Max.
All right.
Well, for one moment there, it looked like Alex Brundle had an extra Formula One World Championship, but it was Alex Brundle interviewing the top 3. And we thank him for his questions. We thank the drivers for their answers. Enjoyed that qualifying session immensely. P3, P4, identical lap time. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Charles Leclerc on the grid for only the second time since they became teammates. Good efforts all round. From Gasly, Hadjar and Alonso going for that run in the gap and giving the crowd something to remember for their weekend. And then Piastri beating Norris in a straight fight to pole position. Marta Garcia, F1 Academy champion of 2023, presenting the Pirelli pole position trophy to Oscar Piastri, who had to wait a while, a couple of seasons, before he was able to get one on the board, but now 4 this year, most pole positions for anyone so far. And McLaren have locked out the front row, with that man starting 8 meters further forward than his rival for the title, or I should say his nearest rival for the title. Well, my thanks to David Coulthard, to Jolyon Palmer, and to you for your company. That feels like the sort of qualifying hour that merits quite a lot of post-show analysis. Enjoy that. We're back tomorrow when F1 returns. Goodbye.